Before you took your first breath, you already knew who you were. You already remembered where you came from. You carried within you a vast memory, older than time, etched not into your mind, but into your very being. But the moment you entered this world, something shifted. The bright lights, the rushing hands, the flood of sensations crashing against your newborn senses. And with it came something deeper, a forgetting. Not because you failed, not because you were broken, but because this world is designed for forgetting. You were born into a system that does not want you to remember the truth about your birth, about the choice you made to come here, about the consciousness that existed long before your body formed. You were taught that you are a blank slate, that life begins with biology, that you are a product of random events, a fragile creature stumbling through a chaotic world. But deep down, something in you never fully believed it. There were flashes, moments of uncanny familiarity with places you had never been, dreams that felt more real than waking life, an ache in your bones for something you couldn't name but could never quite forget. These were not fantasies, they were fragments, echoes of the memory you carried from before. You didn't begin here. You chose to be here, not as a mistake, not as punishment, but as part of something vast and intentional, something your conscious mind has been trained to ignore. The forgetting was part of the design, because to truly remember, you had to first experience what it meant to be lost. Only then could the act of remembering mean something more than knowledge. It would become an awakening, a return not just to information, but to your origin. And that return has already begun. Before you were born, you stood at the threshold of worlds, not in the way you were taught to imagine, not as a ghost, not as a mist, but as a field of consciousness so vast, so luminous, that the limited mind struggles to comprehend it. You saw the life you would live, not all of it, but glimpses, the major intersections, the souls you would meet again, the lessons your spirit longed to explore. And you agreed. You chose. Not because the path would be easy, not because the pain would be light, but because within you was the knowing. That experience itself would shape you in ways comfort never could. You knew that stepping into form meant stepping into limitation. You knew that you would forget your true nature, at least for a time. You knew that the density of this world, the gravity of it, would press against your being like a heavy stone. And still, you said yes, not out of naivety, out of courage, because you understood something many have forgotten, that even in the forgetting, the essence remains intact, that the thread of consciousness, though buried, never breaks, that the journey through darkness is not a fall from grace, but a descent into experience, into contrast, into the sacred opportunity to rediscover yourself in a way that is only possible through the fire of embodiment. You are not here by accident. You are not random. You are a soul carrying memory. Memory not only of other lifetimes, but of the space between them, of the infinite fields where choice is made, where paths are woven, where destinies are crafted not by fate, but by free will. And though the noise of the world would have you believe you are powerless, directionless, disconnected, the truth has never left you. It waits in the silent spaces between your thoughts. It pulses in the yearning that never fully goes away. It flickers in the moments of wonder you cannot explain. You're not beginning this journey now. You are remembering that you chose it long ago. And in that remembering, a doorway opens. Not outside of you, within you. The forgetting was never a punishment. It was a design, a sacred veil drawn gently across your mind, not to diminish you, but to allow you the rarest of opportunities, the chance to choose yourself again. Because true growth cannot be given. It must be chosen. Not from a place of knowing everything, but from the rawness of not knowing and still reaching for truth. Without forgetting, there would be no real discovery, no true remembering, no authentic awakening. You would move through life like a character reading from a script, already aware of every plot twist, every lesson, every outcome. And there would be no depth in that, no fire, no meaning. Forgetting strips away certainty, and in doing so, it gives birth to something even more powerful. Faith. Not blind faith, not obedience. The faith that rises from the silence inside you. The faith that whispers, even when the world is crumbling. You are more than this. You stumble, you fall, you get lost in the noise, in the chaos, in the endless labyrinth of distraction and fear. And yet, something in you keeps pulling. A thread you cannot see but can always feel. A pull toward something more real than everything you were taught to believe. This thread is your origin calling you home. Every challenge you have faced was not to break you. It was to shake loose the illusions you mistook for truth. Every heartbreak was not to punish you. It was to crack open the walls you built around your infinite heart. Every moment of feeling lost was not a failure. It was the map leading you back to yourself. Because in the end, you were never meant to stay asleep. You were meant to wake up inside the dream. And when you do, when you start to see through the veil, the world does not simply change around you. You change your relationship to it. You move differently. You choose differently. You live from a place deeper than survival, deeper than fear, deeper than the programming you inherited. You begin, finally, to remember. And with every breath of remembrance, the truth you carried into this life grows louder. When you begin to wake up, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes kinder, not because all your problems magically disappear, but because you finally see through the illusions that once held you captive. You realize that most of the pain you carried wasn't born from the events themselves, but from the stories you were told about them. Stories that said you were powerless. Stories that said you were broken. Stories that said you were alone. You realize that beneath every fear is a forgetting, and beneath every act of courage is a remembering. As you awaken, you stop looking outside yourself for validation. You stop chasing external milestones to prove your worth. You stop living your life according to maps drawn by those who forgot their own way long ago. Instead, you start listening inwardly. You start trusting the pull of your own soul, the quiet guidance that never left you, even when you turned away from it. You begin to see the hidden architecture of your life, how every encounter, every loss, every triumph was stitched together with precision beyond human understanding. Not by accident, not by randomness, but by the silent wisdom you carried into this life before you ever drew your first breath. And with this seeing comes a responsibility, a sacred one. Because now you are no longer a passive participant in your story. You are a conscious creator of it. You realize that your choices matter, not just for your own life, but for the collective field of consciousness you are part of. Every act of kindness ripples outward beyond what you can see. Every moment of courage shifts the frequency of the whole. Every time you choose love over fear, presence over distraction, truth over comfort, you are remembering not just for yourself, but for all of us. Because we are connected in ways the forgetting tried to make you doubt. But the connection was never broken, only hidden. And now, as you stand at the edge of remembering, You hold a power older than any institution, older than any system, older than fear itself. The power to awaken fully, and by doing so, to help awaken the world. If the memory inside you is beginning to stir, subscribe and walk this path of remembrance with us. Waking up is not a grand event marked by trumpets and banners. It is a quiet revolution inside your own being. It happens in the smallest of choices, choosing to respond instead of react, choosing to pause instead of rush, choosing to listen instead of assuming. It is a daily remembering, 1,000 tiny acts of alignment with the truth you carry within. You start to realize that awakening is not about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it from a different frequency. You still live among the noise. You still walk among the distractions, but they no longer command your attention the way they once did. You move through life with a deeper center, a steadiness that doesn't collapse with every gust of chaos. You find yourself drawn to people who reflect your deeper knowing, not just your surface roles. You find yourself letting go of patterns, habits, and relationships that were built on the foundation of forgetting, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because you realize now that everything which no longer resonates with your remembering must fall away to make space for what truly belongs. And as you let go, you make room. Room for new alignments. Room for new timelines. Room for the deeper unfolding of who you were always meant to become. You don't force these changes. You allow them. You stop chasing what was never meant for you. You stop clinging to the versions of yourself that were never real. And you start living, not as a puppet of old programming, but as a sovereign being woven from the fabric of consciousness itself. You understand that your life is not just a sequence of events. It is a sacred expression of your soul's remembering. And every step you take in alignment with that remembering reshapes the reality around you. Not through domination, not through force, but through presence. A presence so quiet, yet so potent, that it begins to retune the world itself. As you live from remembering, life stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something that happens through you. You no longer move through the world asking, "What can I get?" You move through it asking, "What can I become?" Each moment becomes an opportunity. Each encounter becomes a mirror. Each challenge becomes an initiation. You stop seeing obstacles as punishments. You recognize them as invitations to deepen, to clarify, to embody the truth even more fully. Pain no longer breaks you the way it once did. It refines you. Loss no longer devastates you the way it once did. It clears the space for something more aligned. Fear no longer paralyzes you the way it once did. It becomes a threshold you are willing to cross, again and again, because you know what waits on the other side is always more real than what you are leaving behind. And with every crossing, you remember a little more. You remember that you are not the fragile identity you were taught to protect. You are not the sum of your mistakes or achievements. You are not the roles you perform, the names you answer to, the masks you wear. You are the awareness beneath it all, the presence behind the eyes, the silent witness who chose to step into form not to escape pain, but to alchemize it into wisdom. This realization does not make you immune to suffering, but it transforms your relationship to it. You start to see that even in the breaking, even in the burning, something sacred is being revealed, not something foreign, not something given from outside, something that was always inside you, waiting to be remembered. And as you continue to walk this path, not perfectly, but consciously, you weave a different kind of world around you, a world where truth resonates louder than fear, a world where presence outweighs performance, a world where remembering is not the exception, but the new foundation. You might think your awakening is small, that it is personal, that it concerns only you. But the truth is, every act of remembering sends ripples through the entire field. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you shift the frequency of the space you occupy. Every time you choose authenticity over conformity, you light a signal fire in the collective consciousness. Every time you choose courage over fear, you loosen the chains for others who have yet to find their key. You do not need a platform. You do not need a title. You do not need permission. Your being is enough. Your frequency is enough. Your remembering is enough. The systems that have ruled through fear and forgetting are not sustained by force alone. They are sustained by consent, by the quiet agreements made every day by souls too distracted, too tired, or too afraid to question them. When you remember, you revoke your consent. You withdraw your energy from the illusions. You dismantle the structures not by fighting them, but by no longer feeding them. You become a living fracture in the old world, a crack through which a new light can pour. And though it may seem small at first, that light spreads. It connects with others. It weaves a new web beneath the crumbling structures of the old, a web built not on fear, but on presence, not on hierarchy, but on resonance, not on domination, but on remembering. This is why the old world fears the awakened, not because they are violent, not because they are loud, but because they are free. And true freedom is contagious. It cannot be legislated. It cannot be bought. It cannot be destroyed. It spreads invisibly, silently, from heart to heart, from choice to choice, from breath to breath, until one day, what seemed impossible becomes inevitable, a world built not on forgetting, but on remembering. And you, whether you realize it yet or not, are part of that weaving. You always have been. Imagine a world where remembering is the norm, not the exception, where children are raised to honor the silent wisdom inside them, instead of being trained to forget it, where education teaches how to listen inwardly as much as how to think outwardly, where success is measured not by accumulation, but by alignment. Imagine cities built around resonance, not hierarchy. Communities form not from fear of scarcity, but from the abundance that flows when presence is shared. Imagine conversations where people speak from the silence beneath their words, where truth is not a weapon, but a bridge, where differences are not threats but doorways into deeper understanding. In this world, you are not required to fit into someone else's mold. You are invited to embody your unique frequency fully, because your frequency is not a mistake. It is a piece of the greater symphony life has been composing since before time had a name. There is no need to dominate others, no need to prove your worth, no need to scramble for a place at a shrinking table. You recognize that life itself is the feast, and everyone who remembers is welcomed to the table. This world is not a fantasy. It is already forming, in the invisible spaces between awakenings, in the silent courage of those who dare to live from their remembering, even when the world around them clings to forgetting. It is being woven right now, by hands you will never see, in hearts you may never meet, in breaths taken by those you will never know. And every step you take, in alignment with your own truth, sends another thread into that great weaving. You are not waiting for a savior. You are not waiting for permission. You are building it. Here, now, with every act of courage, with every moment of presence, with every breath you choose to take awake. And when enough of us remember, the world we dream of will not be something we fight for. It will be something we simply live into, because it was always waiting, not somewhere else, not someday far away, but inside us, waiting to be remembered. The truth about your birth is not something the world wanted you to know, because a soul that remembers cannot be controlled. A soul that remembers cannot be broken. A soul that remembers becomes a living flame, quiet, steady, unextinguishable. You were not born by accident. You were not thrown into chaos to stumble blindly. You were not a blank slate waiting for the world to write your story. You came here carrying a song, a signature, a frequency that no one else could bring. You came here with memory braided into your bones, a memory not of facts or dates, but of being, of vastness, of belonging, of purpose beyond anything the world could define for you. And now, as you begin to remember, you stand at a crossroads. You can choose to slip back into forgetting, to fit, to survive, to go along with the noise. Or you can choose to trust the silent knowing rising inside you, the knowing that whispers, "You are more than you were told. You are more than you have feared. You are more than you can yet imagine." The world may not understand this path. It may resist it. It may mock it. But the remembering does not need the world's permission. It moves in you like a tide. It rises in you like the dawn. And once you answer its call, there is no going back. Only deeper, only truer, only freer. Because the journey you began before birth is not over. It is only just beginning. The only real question left is this: if you allowed yourself to fully remember the truth you carried into this life, how would you choose to live from this moment forward? Tell me below. Not the answer the world taught you to give. The answer that has been waiting in your heart all along.